What happens when a tired stranger walks into a fast food restaurant, and the only person who helps him doesn't know he owns the place? Isaiah Elden stood outside the glass doors of Store 11, one of the 14 fast food restaurants he built from scratch over the last 12 years. His hoodie was worn, jeans faded, and his baseball cap sat low to hide his face. He'd shaved his beard and wore brown-rimmed glasses. No one here had ever met him in person. He never came to this location, and his picture wasn't posted anywhere. With over 70 employees across all locations, most only knew his name from the employee handbook. He looked around the parking lot, feeling the ache in his lower back. He hadn't slept much the night before, too busy replaying the events of the last few weeks over and over. Complaints had been rolling in quietly. A few reviews about rude staff, a missed catering order, a customer saying they were laughed at when they asked about dietary options. Nothing explosive on its own, but enough to make Isaiah uneasy. He'd built this company out of a tiny trailer in Kansas. His first fryer was from a garage sale. He still remembered sleeping in the back of the original location, rolling out of bed to prep the dough himself. But now, things felt different, corporate, cold, disconnected. He didn't want to send another email or sit through another filtered report. He wanted the truth. So he drove 3 hours last night, slept in his car behind the gas station, and now he was here. Just a tired man walking in for a meal. The door chimed as he stepped in. Inside, the place was half full. It was just past the lunch rush. A mother wrestled with her toddler in the corner. 2 high schoolers shared fries at a booth, and behind the counter, 3 workers stood. 2 were leaning on the prep table, phones in hand. The third, a young woman, moved fast, wiping trays, checking the screen, and calling out orders. Isaiah stepped up to the counter, rubbing his eyes. "Hey there," he said, voice raspy. "Sorry, I'm a little out of it. Long drive. Do you guys have anything that's not fried?" The girl behind the counter turned to him. She looked barely 20, freckles across her nose, dark curls tied messily back. Her name tag read Mira. She blinked at him, then gave a small smile. "Yeah, we've got grilled chicken wraps and a couple salad options. You okay?" Isaiah nodded slowly. "Just tired." Real tired. Mira didn't ask more. She glanced back at the screen and said, "Why don't you grab a seat? I'll bring it out to you." One of the other workers, a tall guy with tattoos down his arms, looked up. "You gonna take his order or babysit him?" Mira didn't answer. She tapped at the screen, rang up a wrap and a bottle of water, but didn't ask Isaiah for his card. He noticed. "You didn't? It's on me," she said quietly. "Sit down." Isaiah's mouth opened, then closed. He turned and shuffled to the corner booth, the one near the windows. He watched the workers. The tattooed guy and a girl with a long braid kept half working, half scrolling on their phones. Mira was doing most of it, running to the fryer, handing out orders, wiping the counters. 10 minutes later, she brought over his tray. "This'll help," she said, setting it down. "You look like you've been through it." Isaiah looked up at her. "You always this nice to strangers," she shrugged. "I mean, sometimes people just need a little kindness. You looked like you needed it." He nodded slowly, picking up the wrap. "Hot, fresh." "What's your name again?" "Mira." "Thanks, Mira," she smiled, then turned to head back. Before she did, Isaiah asked, "Hey, just curious, who's the manager here?" Mira paused and lowered her voice. "That'd be Eric. He's in the back, though. He only really comes out if someone messes up." Isaiah watched her walk away, then turned his attention to the food. He chewed slowly. A part of him felt embarrassed he hadn't meant to look that rough. But another part was grateful. She didn't know who he was. She just helped. Minutes passed. Then he heard a voice snap from the back. "Mira, you take your break yet or planning to work yourself into the grave?" A guy stepped out, broad shoulders, short beard, button-up shirt untucked. "Eric." Mira wiped her hands. "I was going to after I cleared the lobby." "Go now," Eric said. "And tell Jack to stop leaning on the fryer before I staple him to it." Isaiah watched as Mira nodded, then stepped out the back. Eric looked around like he owned the place. He walked past Isaiah's booth without a glance. The other 2 employees straightened up but didn't move fast. Isaiah stood and walked to the counter. Eric turned at the sound. "You need something?" "Just wanted to say thanks," Isaiah said quietly. "For the food." Eric glanced at the tray. "Didn't ring that in," he muttered. "Who gave it to you?" "That girl, Mira." Eric's jaw tightened. She's not supposed to comp meals without permission. Isaiah raised an eyebrow. She was just being kind. That's not her call to make, Eric said flatly. You got a problem with that, call corporate. Isaiah stared at him for a beat, then nodded. Maybe I will. He went back to his seat, pulled out a small notebook, and started writing names, notes, observations. He'd seen enough. Not everything, but enough to know this store had a problem, and it wasn't Mira. He waited until Mira came back out, thanked her again, and left. The next day he returned, this time in uniform, name tag read Ian. The district manager had approved a last-minute trainee transfer from another store after Isaiah called in a favor. No one would question it. New hires came and went often. Eric barely looked at him. You're the new guy, great. Mira, show him where the mop bucket is. Mira looked surprised but nodded. Sure, come on. As they stepped into the back, Isaiah caught her glancing at him. Hey, did I see you yesterday? Isaiah smiled. Maybe, I get that a lot. She tilted her head. Weird. Anyway, this is how you fill the mop bucket. Don't step on the back mat, it's slippery. He nodded, taking it in. Eric shouted from the front, Mira, you training him or adopting him? She winced. Sorry. Isaiah watched her hurry off, heart sinking. He was going to learn everything. And by the end of the week, they'd all know exactly who he was and what kind of company he still wanted this to be. Isaiah's second day began before the sun came up. He parked in the rear gravel lot again, climbing out of his pickup with a tension already simmering in his chest. The back door was propped open with a cracked milk crate, and a sour smell of fryer oil hit him as he stepped inside. The kitchen lights were on, but the prep station sat untouched. No one else was there yet. He checked the time. 5:42. By 6:15, Mira entered through the front, tossing her hoodie into a cubby and tying on her apron in one motion. She didn't notice him at first. You're early, she said once she turned and spotted him near the sink. Figured I'd get ahead, Isaiah answered, wiping down the prep counter. No one else here. Nope, just us for now. He followed her lead as she pulled out the dough trays from the cooler. Her movements were methodical, not rushed, but not wasting time either. She didn't speak unless necessary, and when she did, it was clipped focused. He watched her set up the line, checking expiration stickers, tossing a few containers without hesitation. Why'd you throw those out? He asked. They expired yesterday, she said. Technically, we have a 24-hour grace window, but I don't risk it. I've gotten food poisoning before. Not from here, somewhere else, but once is enough. Isaiah nodded and kept prepping. She didn't ask questions about him. She didn't mention yesterday. He appreciated that. By 7:15, the others rolled in. Jack was first, dragging his feet and yawning like he'd just rolled off someone's couch. Then came Celine, high bun, earbuds in, ignoring everyone. Isaiah noticed Mira's shoulders tighten when they arrived. She didn't greet either of them, just moved faster. At 8, Eric arrived. Let's go, people, he barked, not looking up from his phone as he passed through the kitchen. Health inspections next week. If we fail, someone's getting cut. Isaiah caught Mira's jaw tighten, but she didn't respond. She was already pulling stock from the back. By noon, the pace had shifted. Orders came in steadily, and the team's rhythm fractured fast. Celine hovered by the register but didn't upsell or take initiative. Jack burned 2 batches of fries and shrugged each time. Mira corrected him once quietly, but he rolled his eyes and said, "They're just fries." Isaiah ended up covering drive-through, trying to keep up. He missed 2 drink orders and got scolded by Celine, who hadn't noticed she gave the wrong sandwich in the first place. At 1:30, Isaiah stepped into the walk-in cooler under the excuse of grabbing more lettuce, but really just to breathe. His shirt stuck to his back. The headset pinched his ear. This wasn't just disorganized, it was demoralized. Mira was carrying everything. The others did just enough to not get written up. He returned to the line to find Mira cleaning a spill behind the fryer while Jack leaned against the back counter, scrolling his phone. I asked you to mop that 10 minutes ago, she said to him, not raising her voice. Jack didn't look up. I was helping someone else. No, you weren't, Isaiah said, stepping in before she could. I was watching. Jack glanced at him. You've been here 5 minutes. Relax. Doesn't take long to notice who's pulling weight. Jack pushed off the counter, staring at him now. You got a problem? Nope, Isaiah said. Just telling you what I saw. Eric appeared from the back office, sipping a soda. What's going on? Mira straightened. Nothing. Just a mess someone needed to clean. Eric looked at Isaiah. New guy causing trouble already, Isaiah stared back. Just trying to help, right, Eric muttered. Why don't you take your break? Mira grabbed the register. Jack Fry Station. Isaiah stepped outside, not because he needed a break, but because if he stayed in there 10 seconds longer, he might have said too much. He sat on the curb behind the dumpster enclosure, watching a cat slink across the lot. His hands were shaking with quiet anger. Not at Jack. Not even at Eric, really. At himself. He'd let this happen. He'd built a company with systems, handbooks, and policies, but none of that meant anything if the wrong people were enforcing them. Back inside, he saw Mira ringing up a customer with her usual calm. She didn't fake smiles. But she didn't make people feel like they were a burden either. She moved with purpose, not performance. He saw it in the way she steadied a tray for an older woman who had trouble lifting it, in how she noticed without being told that someone was waiting for a refill. After the rush, he found her in the back restocking napkins. "How long you been here?" he asked. She kept her eyes on the box. "About 15 months. You ever think about becoming a shift lead?" She laughed, short and dry. "Eric doesn't promote people like me. Like you, the ones who say something when things aren't right." He leaned against the wall. "That ever backfire? Every time." He didn't push her. Instead, he asked, "Why stay?" She hesitated, then shrugged. "I need the hours. I take care of my brother. He's in school. I cover rent, utilities, groceries. Can't afford to gamble on a new job." Isaiah nodded. "You ever talk to anyone higher up?" She gave him a look. "You mean the district manager who visits once every 3 months and doesn't remember our names?" "Yeah," he said. "That one." She grabbed a stack of cup lids. "Let me know how that works out for you." Later that afternoon, a customer spilled a drink in the lobby. Mira rushed to clean it. Celine stood behind the counter watching. Isaiah grabbed paper towels and helped. The customer, a young mom carrying a baby, apologized. "No stress," Mira said. "Happens all the time." As they cleaned, Isaiah asked softly, "You always this steady?" She glanced at him, confused. "You don't get frazzled, even when people are rude or lazy." "I can't afford to be," she said. "First time I snapped at someone, I got written up. I was covering 2 positions and hadn't had a break in 6 hours. Didn't matter. Eric said I was being unprofessional." He didn't respond. Just kept wiping the floor by close. Isaiah's legs felt like sandbags. He helped scrub the grill, sanitize surfaces, and sweep under the booths. Mira stayed 2 hours past her scheduled time. Jack had already clocked out. Celine left without saying goodbye. At 10:28, Isaiah and Mira stepped out into the night air. "You live far?" he asked. She nodded. "Couple miles. I take the bus." "You okay getting home this late?" "I've done worse." He hesitated. "You know. You're the only reason this place doesn't fall apart." She smiled, not with pride, just tiredness. "That's what worries me," she said, then walked toward the street. Isaiah stood there a moment longer, then got in his truck and drove to the hotel he'd checked into under a fake name. He stared at the ceiling for hours, not because he couldn't sleep, but because everything made sense now, the complaints, the turnover, the quiet churn just beneath the surface, and the worst part was Mira thought no one noticed, thought no one cared. He was going to change that. But not with slogans or bonuses or empty promises. Tomorrow, he'd start asking the real questions, and the answers would determine who stayed and who didn't. Isaiah arrived before opening again, sliding in through the back door with his apron already tied and headset clipped to his collar. The air smelled faintly of bleach from the overnight cleaning crew, but the floor still felt sticky in spots. He didn't comment. He needed to see what happened when no one thought they were being watched. Mira was already there, unlocking the cooler with a key from the manager's drawer. She moved with a tension that hadn't been there 2 days ago, less automatic, more guarded. She greeted him with a nod, then turned her focus to inventory sheets. There was a fresh scratch down the side of her forearm, faint but raw. "Rough night?" Isaiah asked, tying a trash bag. She didn't look up, just clumsy. The fryer door stuck again. He waited for her to say more. She didn't. Eric arrived later than usual, muttering something about traffic while brushing crumbs off his shirt. He walked straight into the office and closed the door behind him. No greeting. No check-in. Mira didn't flinch. She just handed Isaiah a clipboard. Can you count sauces while I finish the register? He nodded and took it quietly. The shift began like the others, slow at first, then gradually building, but Isaiah noticed something different today. Mira was quieter. Not in the focused, self-contained way from before, but in a way that felt almost cautious. As if she expected someone to be watching her too closely. By 10, Jack showed up again, this time with a bandage on his finger. He made sure everyone noticed it, burned it yesterday. No one told me the oil needed switching, he said loud enough for the kitchen to hear. Celine arrived 10 minutes after him with a coffee in hand and no apology for being late. Eric didn't say a word about either of them, just sat in the office. Isaiah handled the front register, while Mira managed drive-through. The headsets were staticky, the speaker outside crackling every time someone ordered. Mira adjusted the mic 4 times before giving up and relaying the orders manually to Isaiah. He entered each one as fast as she called them. They made it work, but barely. By 11:30, the line was curving toward the door. A mother with 2 strollers struggled to keep her kids contained while waiting. A college student asked for a refund on a sandwich he hadn't touched, claiming it wasn't what he ordered. Mira offered to remake it. He refused. Eric stepped out only when the customer raised his voice. "Is there a problem here or are we just bored today?" Eric asked, arms crossed. The customer rattled off his complaint again. Eric didn't even glance at the receipt. "You already ate half of it," he snapped. "We don't do free meals just because you changed your mind." Isaiah glanced at the sandwich. It was untouched. Mira stepped in. "He hasn't eaten it." Eric raised his voice. "Did I ask for commentary?" The whole front went quiet. The student backed off, muttering something under his breath and walking out empty-handed. Mira turned back to the register without a word. Eric returned to the office like nothing had happened. Isaiah followed him. He paused just outside the door, pretending to check the schedule posted beside it. Inside, Eric sat in front of the computer, scrolling through security footage. He was rewinding the feed from earlier that morning. "You record audio?" Isaiah asked, stepping inside. Eric looked up, startled. "You need something, Ian. Saw you checking the footage. Something missing." Eric narrowed his eyes. "Just making sure people are showing up when they say they are. You'd be surprised how many times people punch in and disappear." Isaiah leaned against the wall. "That happen a lot here," Eric shrugged. "Depends on the day. Mira's always moving, but she's not perfect. Gets too involved sometimes, tries to play hero, doesn't know how to stay in her lane. I've seen her fix a lot of mistakes that weren't hers." Eric spun his chair toward him. "You seem real interested in her work habits for someone who's been here 3 days. Isaiah held his gaze. "I just notice who keeps this place running." Eric scoffed. "She's not management material, doesn't follow chain of command, thinks she's smarter than everyone else." Isaiah nodded slowly. "Maybe she is." Eric didn't respond, just turned back to the screen with a tight jaw. That afternoon, Isaiah waited until Eric left for his usual coffee run. 30 minutes of silence from the office that everyone had clearly grown used to. Mira was restocking the reach and fridge when he approached. "You ever think about quitting?" She kept her eyes on the bottles. "Every week." "What stops you, my brother? Rent, car payments, reality." Isaiah crouched down to help her stack drinks. "If someone offered you another job, same pay, better people, would you take it?" She tilted her head. "Is that theoretical, or are you recruiting?" "I'm just wondering," he said carefully. "There's a lot of places that could use someone like you." Mira leaned against the fridge, wiping condensation from her arm. "I've tried, no one calls back. My last manager here told me I wasn't management material either. Said I didn't fit the culture." Isaiah looked at her. "What culture is that?" She gave a dry laugh. "One where everyone keeps their mouth shut and does the minimum." He stood. "You ever meet the owner?" She blinked. "Of this place? No, I've seen emails. Once saw a photo in a newsletter. I think his name's Isaiah something. He's not really involved." "What if he was?" She shrugged. "Doesn't matter. People like that don't show up unless there's money to count or a lawsuit." Isaiah nodded slowly. "Maybe that's true." Later, near closing, a delivery truck arrived early. Mira was the only one who seemed to know the routine. Jack tried to help but left a box of frozen buns blocking the emergency exit. Celine disappeared to take a phone call. Eric wasn't even on the premises. He'd left early without explanation. Isaiah helped Mira unload. The stockroom was cramped and humid. Mira lifted each box without complaint, even the heavier ones. Isaiah took over halfway through. "You don't have to do that," she said, watching him stack them. "I want to." She looked at him for a quiet moment. "You're not like the others," she said finally, meaning, most new hires disappear after 2 shifts, or they figure out how to coast. You actually care. Isaiah set the box down carefully. "Maybe I've been in places like this before." "Yeah," she asked, wiping her forehead. "What happened?" "I stopped waiting for someone else to fix things." She glanced at the exit. "Then I hope you've got better luck than me." The next morning, Isaiah didn't show up in uniform. He walked in through the front, jeans and clean button-down, standing tall. Mira was on register. Celine stood nearby, arms crossed. Jack leaned on the drink station. Eric was behind the counter, counting cash. Isaiah held a clipboard and a visitor's badge. Eric looked up, confused. "Can I help you?" Isaiah stepped forward, setting the clipboard on the counter. "I'm Isaiah Elden. I own this place." The room went still. Mira froze. Celine's jaw dropped. Jack straightened like he'd been hit with a jolt. Eric stared at him, trying to process the words. Isaiah didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. "I've been working here the last few days under a different name, watching, listening." Eric opened his mouth, but Isaiah held up a hand, not interested in excuses. He turned to Mira. "You treated a stranger with more kindness than most people show their coworkers. You held this place together with no support, no recognition, and you never once asked for anything in return. That ends today." Then he turned to Eric. "I want your keys." Eric's face flushed. "You can't be serious. I've been managing this location for over a year, and I've been watching you ignore customers, dismiss your staff, and walk out early without telling anyone. You're done." Eric looked around the room for support. No one moved. He tossed the keys on the counter and walked out. Isaiah looked at Mira. "Can you stay a few minutes after your shift?" She nodded slowly, still in shock. "Good," he said. "We've got work to do." Mira sat at the corner booth by the window, arms folded across her apron, eyes fixed on the floor. The restaurant had gone quiet after the lunch wave passed. A few customers lingered, but the energy had shifted completely. Jack and Celine kept their heads down, neither speaking unless directly asked. No one seemed entirely sure what was happening, only that something had changed. Isaiah stood by the front counter, still holding the clipboard, watching the store like he was seeing it for the first time, which, in a way, he was. The last few days hadn't just revealed broken operations. They showed him how far he'd drifted from the reasons he built this place to begin with. He walked over to Mira's table, setting the clipboard down. "Appreciate you staying," he said. She nodded slightly, still not fully meeting his eyes. "I'm not here to make a show of this," he continued. "You've had enough of those. I want to talk about what comes next." "I don't know what to say," she said quietly. "You don't have to say anything right now. Just listen." She looked up then, gaze steady but cautious. "I'm pulling Eric from the company." "Permanently," Isaiah said. "He won't be back in any capacity." "I've already spoken to HR." Mira blinked, but didn't react beyond that. "I know it won't fix everything overnight," he added, "but it's a start. I've asked the district manager to come in tomorrow, not for a walkthrough, for accountability. He'll be staying until we get this location back into shape." Mira raised an eyebrow. "You trust him to do that?" "I didn't," Isaiah said. "I do now. Because I'm tying his performance reviews to the success of this location specifically. No more rubber-stamped visits. No more hiding." She sat back slowly, her posture loosening the slightest bit. "I'm transferring Celine to a different store," he said. "Under a more structured team. She's not ready for this pace. She might thrive in a slower environment, or she might decide this job isn't for her. But she won't be your problem anymore." "What about Jack?" she asked. "I'm giving him 1 more week, under supervision. If he can't step up, he's gone." Mira nodded. "That's fair." Isaiah leaned on the edge of the table. "I'm not asking you to take on more. I know you're already stretched. But I want to offer you something." She waited. "I want you to step into a lead position, not in title only. I'll train you personally for the next 2 weeks. You'll have veto power over shift schedules, say in hiring, and a direct line to me, not through layers." "Me?" She stared at him like she was trying to decide if he was serious. "I don't want your answer now," he added. "I know trust takes longer than a conversation." Mira didn't break eye contact. I'd need to drop one of my night shifts. For my brother, done. I don't want to babysit lazy people. You won't, that's my job, she exhaled through her nose. Then I'll try, Isaiah nodded. Good. He stood and turned toward the kitchen. The back door swung open and an older man entered, clipboard in hand, wearing a company fleece. Isaiah waved him over. This is Lewis, our compliance consultant. He's doing a full audit of this location. Health, operations, safety, everything. Not to punish anyone, but to get us current. Lewis gave Mira a polite nod, then moved toward the prep station. Isaiah turned back to her. You'll get the report too, not just management. You're trusting me with that, she asked. I trust you more than anyone I've met here. She looked away for a second, then stood slowly. I should finish stocking the lobby. Isaiah stepped aside. Take your time. As she moved toward the front, Isaiah walked into the office. It still smelled faintly of stale coffee and cleaner. He opened the bottom drawer of the filing cabinet and pulled out a stack of old employee logs. Eric had been signing off on training completions that hadn't occurred. Several names had never clocked more than 10 hours before being listed as fully trained. He snapped a photo with his phone and sent it to HR. He closed the drawer and returned to the front just as a delivery driver wheeled in a dolly of frozen goods. Mira was already directing him toward the back with calm efficiency. Isaiah approached Jack, who was wiping down trays at a side station. I'm giving you 1 week, Isaiah said evenly. Show up early, follow Mira's lead, no shortcuts. Jack didn't argue. If I hear one complaint, you're out. No write-ups, no warnings. Understood, Jack nodded once. Yeah, understood. Isaiah walked back toward the booth by the window. He sat down and pulled out his tablet. He started drafting a memo to his leadership team, not a scolding, a blueprint. One that would require every store manager to spend 1 weekend a month working entry-level shifts. One that removed auto-approvals from performance reviews. One that installed a rotating employee council, real workers, not just corporate picks to meet with him quarterly. When he looked up, Mira was helping a woman carry 2 trays to the table. She did it without flourish, just saw a need and handled it. Isaiah watched for a moment, then stood and walked toward the door. He stopped beside her on the way out. I'll be back tomorrow. Not undercover. Just to work, she gave a small nod. I'll have a task list ready, he smiled softly, looking forward to it. As he stepped into the parking lot, the heat hit him again, but this time it didn't feel heavy. He walked to his truck, climbed in, and sat for a moment before starting the engine. He had forgotten something along the way, not just what it meant to lead, but what it meant to care. Not for spreadsheets or growth charts, but for individuals. For people like Mira, who showed up when no one asked her to. Who gave without expecting a return. Who kept the lights on even when no one noticed. He would not forget again. Tomorrow, the rebuild would begin not just in Store 11, but in every location that bore his name. Not because he had to, because she reminded him why he wanted to.